I've been attempting to record this podcast for 4 years. It was never that I didn't know what to say. It's that I kept trying to say it perfectly. And in doing so, my desire to be impactful became the very thing standing in the way of my impact. Every time I got close to being done, I'd re-record, re-edit, reword, then scrap the whole thing. There was always this critical voice within me that was policing the delivery of how I came across. My tonality, was it impactful enough? Was it honest enough? I'd press record, I'd speak from the heart, then I'd listen back, and suddenly I'd start hearing myself differently. Every time I got close, perfectionism got in the way. But not just perfectionism in the productivity sense. It was emotional perfectionism. My truth had to land a certain way in order for it to be valid. And if it didn't, I'd want to do it again and do it better. Unconsciously, I held on to this belief that the only way I could express myself to the world was if it was digestible, only if it sounded just right, only if I wouldn't be misunderstood. Even though I've been aware of this cycle of perfectionism, awareness alone isn't enough to course correct. This desire to express my emotions in this polished, packaged way was most definitely a byproduct of my upbringing and how I was required to be when communicating my feelings with others. So yeah, I've been in this loop for years now. Guess I could call it a trauma loop. But today I'm breaking that cycle, not because I'm aware of it, but because 3 months ago, something shifted in me. Before we get into Your Soulcare Podcast and episode 1, I felt it was important to do a precursor, thus episode 0, giving you a little bit more background on what actually was my catalyst to finally pressing go and getting out of my own way. So what you're about to listen to is me taking a moment to remember the shift that happened for me 3 months ago. Before going to sleep, I wrote in my journal, asking myself the question, what is actually stopping me from bringing this podcast to life? Whenever I have a question that only my higher self can answer, I'll ask myself at night and then free write on it first thing in the morning. This is one of my self-connection hacks that I tend to do. But that following morning, I woke up and instead of going straight to my journal, I went straight to the mic and hit the record button. And this time it felt different. It really did. Like my message might actually move through me in a way that was clean and understandable and digestible. And it did. I got about halfway through recording before that familiar feeling crept in. The desire to revise because I could have said it better, more clearly, more truthfully. So I stopped. I hit delete again. Same cycle, different day. Instead of forcing myself to start from the top, I decided to take a break and I went into the kitchen to make myself a snack, trying to shake up this stagnant energy before I went back to the mic to get into the same cycle again. But while I was standing there starting to make something to eat, my phone rang. It was my mom. "Are you sitting down?" she asked. I knew that tone. I knew that something was wrong. She said, "Your brother's dead." Then she broke down crying, repeatedly saying, "I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I need you." Honestly, in that moment, I don't know what hurt more. The fact that my brother was no longer earthside, or the immeasurable pain of hearing my mother's helpless cry from another state, miles apart. The moment I hung up the phone was the first time in my life I experienced a full body somatic response. I stood up and tried to take a step forward, but instantly I felt like I was going to throw up. By the time my trembling legs carried me to the bathroom, everything just came out of me. My body responded before I could even make sense of it all. There was no space for logic. It didn't need to make mental sense to me because my body knew. grief had arrived. I spent the next 45 minutes trying to keep my legs steady enough to pack a suitcase. 3 hours later, I was on a plane. By the time I arrived to Vegas, my mother was waiting for me at the gate. She broke down in my arms the moment I exited the jet bridge. Here I was again, the strong one, the one who was the glue holding it all together, the one who knew what to do. Not because of some extensive knowledge I had, but because it was necessary and it had to be done. Even now, my perfectionism is trying to creep in. Still unsure if there's such a thing as too much or too little. But what I do know is life is fragile as fuck. My brother, Andre Hafer, was also known as No Name Lane. He moved through life differently. Bold, messy, loud, confidently cocky, unapologetic, full of ideas and execution. He didn't just talk, he moved, and he made sure he got what he wanted. 2 weeks before his passing, we were together in New Orleans. It was a last-minute trip. Me, my partner, our moms, and my brother, who was supposed to bring his best friend, but that plan fell through. So he was the wild card of the group. While my partner and I were moseying along the town with their moms, soaking in the city, he was chasing his vision, filming footage for his YouTube channel, running around with his camera, documenting the beads, the boobs, and the intoxicated conversations of Bourbon Street. My brother had this rare gift, the kind that let him speak to the soul of a person, not just their status. He could hold a conversation with someone sleeping on a sidewalk or someone sitting in a mansion, and both of them would feel seen, heard, and like they made a best friend. As a kid, it drove me nuts. I remember thinking, you don't know him. He's manipulating you. But one of my greatest annoyances with my brother ended up being one of his greatest gifts in life, the ability to communicate with all walks of life. He carried a quiet power, something you felt before he even spoke. People were drawn to him without him even trying. So being in New Orleans for Mardi Gras on Fat Tuesday, he was in his element. The music, movement, people everywhere. It was the kind of moment he lived for. And then, just 14 days later, he was gone. That kind of loss doesn't just hurt. It rearranges you. I remember thinking, damn, all of those videos, all his projects, they'll never be released. And as a creative, that broke me. It wasn't just the physical loss, it was the loss of his visions, his voice, his art that never got shared. It felt like another piece of him disappeared. And then, after the whirlwind, the flights, the funeral no one was ready to plan, after the phone calls, the confusion, the grief, and the logistics of a tragic loss in another state, after trying to figure out what was left behind and what had gone missing, I found out something that stopped me in my tracks. He had released the Mardi Gras episode in just 2 weeks. The moment I found that out, something inside of me shifted. Not just because I got to vicariously live in his joy again, but because he did the thing. He had a vision and he followed through. He hit publish just 5 days before the motorbike accident that took his life. I broke down and cried because the question I had written in my journal just hours before his passing, when I asked myself, what is actually stopping me from bringing this podcast to life? That question, it wasn't haunting me anymore. It was holding up a mirror. I mean, here I was, 4 years deep into a phantom podcast, 4 years of recording, then deleting, of second guessing, of waiting for the right tone, the perfect timing, the version of me that felt most ready. 4 years of letting perfection slow me all the way down. Meanwhile, my little brother, no longer Earthside, would never get to pursue another vision. But while he was here, he lived, he shared, he moved, he hit publish. And I know I need to do the same. This podcast is me honoring that. It's me honoring him. His momentum became a mirror, reflecting my own creative hesitation. And it's the reason you're hearing my voice right now. Thank you for being here, for listening, for arriving in this moment with me. Something in your fractal, your timeline, or your growth is aligned. Maybe you've also learned to hit pause on your power in the name of perfection. And I know this is only episode 0, but before we go any further, I'm feeling called to invite you to ask yourself this. Where are you pressing pause on your voice, your vision, your becoming because you think you're not ready yet? Life is too short. Let this be the moment you stop waiting to be ready because you already are. This is the beginning of your Soulcare Podcast. This is your beginning too. Thank you for being here. I'll meet you in episode 1.
I still wonder how different things could have been if my brother had a policy. If his kids, my nieces and nephews, were set for college, and if I didn't have to put together a GoFundMe, how much more present I could have been for myself, just to grieve. If you've ever experienced loss, you know exactly what I mean. The flights, the paperwork, the legal decisions, all of the logistics that come with the end of a life. The world doesn't stop, and the bills are still due. It's emotionally draining and financially depleting, but it doesn't have to be that way. That's why I became a legacy protection specialist. Not to sell a product, but to help you prepare in a way that I wasn't able to, from a place of intention. At the risk of sounding corny, one of my favorite adulting tasks today is paying my policy because it gives me peace of mind knowing my family will get to grieve, not grind, when it's my time. And I want that for you too. If you're a parent, aunt, uncle, godparent, or someone who cares deeply about the people you love, you have a legacy. And you have the power to break generational cycles of financial instability. As an independent agent, I hope you find a policy that fits your budget. And trust me, it can be ridiculously affordable. Head to DesireeJamila.com/legacy to schedule a call today and secure your legacy.